The stars through the atmospheric shield looked like something spilled. That was always the first thing. Up here on the upper hull, where the plating curved away from the station's spine and the sky opened into filtered blue-white, the stars didn't twinkle so much as settle, patient and unmoving, pressed flat behind the shimmer of the shielding membrane. Princess Renya of the Rethani had been counting them for 43 nights. Not all of them. She wasn't counting all of them. Just the cluster near the second horizon anchor, the one that looked, from this exact angle, like the window above her mother's reading chair back on Reth Prime. 43 nights. The cluster never moved. She kept coming back to check. The rooftop was not meant for her. It was a maintenance tier, gantries bolted between hull struts, welding rigs clamped to anchor points, the whole surface smelling faintly of scorched metal and the particular clean cold of atmosphere edge temperature where the heat management vents pushed processed air upward through grilled slots in the plating. She sat on a supply crate, knees drawn up, her copper-braided menere pinned back with two of its own clasps, the formal robes traded for a linen wrap that let her tail move freely. Down in the diplomatic quarters, she was the Princess Renya, third heir to the Reth succession, attaché to the trade negotiation, immovable in ceremony. Up here, she was just cold, and the stars were the ones from her mother's window, and nobody came. The fur along her forearms was doing something she had been ignoring for several minutes. Reaching, she pressed her arms together, tucking them against her sides, and looked back at the stars. Rethani fur responds to proximity, not intention. A Rethani body doesn't ask permission before it seeks warmth. It simply orients, the way a plant tilts toward a window without knowing glass exists. The fur reaches first. The mind catches up later, or doesn't catch up at all. The welding rig on Gantry 7 had been active all evening, radiating steady heat into the cold. Her fur was reaching toward the rig. That was what she was telling herself. She had not yet looked at who was holding it. Callum Vance had been patching microfracture 4-7 this week alone. He crouched over the seam where hull plate C9 met C10, visor pushed up onto his forehead, running the diagnostics pass for the third time because the third time was the only one he trusted. 29. Broad in the shoulder the way welders got broad. From the angle bracing and the overhead work and the carrying, his neck sunburned from an atmospheric job 2 rotations ago that had gone 4 hours longer than scheduled. Calloused hands. The kind of hands that remembered what they'd touched, ozone, mostly, and hot metal, and the particular tacky grip of a sealed weld joint. He was humming. He always hummed. Didn't notice it, usually. Folk tune from Callista Colony, something his mother sang while she cooked. No formal name, just a melody that moved in a specific shape, slow and rising and then folding back into itself at the end like a question that decided it didn't need answering. He hummed it while he worked the diagnostics pass. He hummed it while he checked the seam. He hummed it while he stood up, stretched his back, pushed the visor up another half-inch. He toned. Saw her. He didn't stop humming. You don't stop mid-bar. It feels wrong, like dropping something. So he finished the bar, and the melody curved through its small rise, and he smiled at her through the last note the way you'd smile at a neighbor who'd turned up at the same coffee stand. Friendly. Uncomplicated. He pulled the next bar of the tune up without thinking and let it go, still looking at her, the way you might hum while making breakfast and happen to be facing a window. Natural. The marriage console mounted on the wall behind him read, "Standby." Her fur went very still. Then every strand on her forearms and collarbones and the long fall of her menere turned, slow and absolute, toward him. Like iron filings. Like they had been waiting for permission. She did not notice. She was looking at his face, which was still doing that small, friendly thing, and her ears had rotated forward without her instruction, and her tail had uncurled from around her knees and stretched out, tip moving slightly, the way a tail moves when a Rethani body is paying attention to something it has decided is important. A welder had no business humming within earshot of alien royalty, but the melody was already out, and her fur was already reaching. The console stopped reading standby. The tone it made was low and ceremonial, and neither of them registered it immediately because Callum was mid-hum and Renya was busy being furious at her own fur for the orientation situation. And then the gold text printed, and the document slid from its housing with a soft mechanical exhale. He turned at the sound, picked it up, turned it over. Read the surface with the expression of a man who has just found a work order in an unexpected location and is mildly inconvenienced by it. Behind him, the atmospheric shield lit at 3 points. 3 blue signatures, each the size of a mid-range carrier, dropping from hyperspace in precise formation. Fleet Standard Approach. Pre-programmed response to a royal bonding event. The protocol running automatically before any mind had processed what triggered it. A comms burst crackled through every deck speaker on the station. Bonding detected. Hull Sector 7. Royal pair confirmed. Fleet in position. Callum held up the document. Is this a work order? Renya's tail had gone rigid. Her ears were flat. Her fur was still entirely, completely, irreversibly oriented toward him, and she appeared to be considering whether the atmospheric shield could be opened manually and quickly. The warmth from the welding rig was still on his skin. When she stepped closer without meaning to, her fur reached first, not away but toward him. The amber strands crossed the gap like something that had been waiting to remember heat. The cold up here was the same cold it had always been. Only the direction of warmth had changed. If you've ever done something completely ordinary and somehow caused an interstellar incident, stay, because it gets so much worse. The guard's name was Orvith. He had served the Rethani royal house for 19 years. He had escorted diplomats through war zones, stood at attention through 7 succession ceremonies, and once talked a planetary governor down from a trade embargo using only cold tea and patience. He was not, by any reasonable measure, a man who rattled easily. He was rattling now. The act of singing, he said, with the careful pronunciation of someone navigating a minefield in formal shoes, or humming, directed at a specific person, in Rethani culture constitutes a soul-revealing. It is the most intimate act in our social vocabulary. It means, I show you what I am made of. I give you the inside of me. When a Rethani body hears it and the fur orients, he paused. The bond is biological. The body has accepted. It cannot be recalled. Callum stayed at him. I was humming a folk song. Yes, about a fishing boat. The content is not relevant. It's not even a good song. Orvith's jaw tightened fractionally. The quality is also not relevant. Somewhere beyond the atmospheric shield, one of the 3 warships rotated on its axis, aligning its ducking approach. The station's traffic systems were already filing emergency rerouting requests. 2 deck supervisors had been woken from sleep. Someone in the diplomatic wing had apparently fainted. Callum looked at Renya. She was looking at the flaw. Her menere had come half loose from its copper clasps, the thick auburn braid falling forward over one shoulder. And her fur was doing the thing. Still doing the thing. Pointed at him like a compass that had decided north was a 29-year-old colony welder with ozone on his hands. The marriage contract was in her tail. Wrapped there. Her tail had taken it while she wasn't supervising it, and now it held the document with the particular grip of something that has made a decision and intends to keep it. She had not looked up. The amber stone at the center of her copper crown caught the starlight from the shield above and held it, steady, while everything else in the sector appeared to be moving very fast. I was being polite, Callum said. The silence that followed had texture. Orvith opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. That is, he said finally, not a defense recognized under Rethani bonding law. Renya made a sound. It started as something controlled and formal and ended as a laugh. Short, genuine, startled out of her the way laughter sometimes is, the kind that arrives before you can decide whether it's appropriate. Her hand came up to cover her mouth. Her ears, which had been flat with embarrassment, rotated slowly upright. She looked at him. He was looking at the 3 warships. Those are, for me, he said. Not a question. Exactly. More like a man reading a situation report and confirming the damage assessment. For the wedding, Orvith said. What wedding? Yours. Callum sat down on the supply crate. Slowly, the welding torch was still in his left hand. He set it down on the grating with a small metallic sound, and he sat there looking at the filtered stars and the 3 warships and the princess who was still laughing behind her hand, and her fur was still doing the thing, and the marriage contract was still in her tail, and somewhere below them 7 decks of station personnel were apparently awake and processing the comms burst. He picked up the welding diagnostics reader, looked at it, put it back down. "Can I at least," he said, "finish the fracture first? It's leaking atmosphere." She laughed again, fully, this time. No hand over the mouth, no careful management of the sound. A real Red Henny laugh, warm and low, the kind that carries. Her fur settled, not away, still toward him, but softened now, the reaching quality replaced by something that had arrived and was simply staying. 7 ambassadors requested clarification on whether a coat left on a chair constituted a claim. The diplomatic office issued a 3-page response. The answer was no, but the question had apparently needed formal documentation. The warships held position through the rest of his shift. He finished the fracture. She stayed on the crate and watched him work, her tail still wrapped loosely around the contract, the amber clasp on her crown catching and releasing light every time she tilted her head. He hummed twice more without noticing. Both times, her fur moved, and both times she pressed her lips together and looked at the stars and said nothing. By morning, the marriage contract had been formally registered in the Red Henny Fleet's bonding archive. Both names, the star date, one line in Red Henny script that someone translated for him 3 weeks later. He sang without knowing. She heard without choosing. The bond chose them both. He read it twice, stuck a note underneath in his own handwriting. "I still think this is a work order." She added a footnote sometime after that, in careful Red Henny script just below his note. He still hums off-key. "I do not care." The contract hung framed above his bunk, slightly crooked, the way things hang when someone has put them up without a level and decided it was close enough. The 3 warships were long gone by then, but she still came to the rooftop, on nights when the star cluster over the second horizon anchor looked right, when the filtered light came in blue-white and the gantries were cold and the welding rig was running. She brought the crate. She Saturday. She waited to hear what song it would be tonight. Did he know what he was starting? Or did the melody always know before he did? "Come back tomorrow. We'll be here."